please. Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here. I want to thank my colleague Delia Ramirez, who's been such a leader on the issue of immigration more broadly, as well as Mahmoud Khalil and Badr Khan Suri for talking about their personal experiences with the detention system, as well as Sarah Owings, who has been such a legal force on so many issues, and, of course, the great Heidi Altman from the Immigrant Justice Center for all of the work that she has been doing on overhauling our immigration incarceration system. We are here because every day we are seeing this expanding immigrant incarceration system, and we are seeing abuses of Americans and people in our country across every single state as people are kidnapped and disappeared and put into the largest for-profit incarceration system in our country, the immigrant detention industrial complex. The administration wants you to think that immigrants are all criminals, but the immigration system is a civil system, not a criminal system, and immigration is not a crime as much as Trump would have you believe differently. And that's exactly why the fact that it's a civil system is exactly why immigrants in detention are actually not provided with attorneys, as happens in the criminal justice system. Think about that. Immigration law is extremely complex, second only to tax law in this country. But we don't provide attorneys for people who are detained. They have to find pro bono attorneys, or they have to find the money to hire somebody. This is not a fair fight. And courts across the country are ruling against Donald Trump's mass detention and deportation policy. At least 225 judges across the country, including 23 appointed by President Trump himself, have ruled against Trump's mass detention policies, saying that they violate due process under the law. Today, Trump has locked up an unprecedented 66,000 people in the most dehumanized conditions in his push for mass deportations of immigrants of every status, a number that will only continue to skyrocket with an unprecedented $45 billion more for ICE that was included in the Republicans' big bad betrayal bill, even as they stole health care from 16 million Americans. ICE's own numbers show that 73% of those who have been detained have absolutely no criminal record. And the vast majority of the remaining 27% have minor convictions like traffic violations. Today's detention facilities function as jails. They deny due process. They disappear and move people from facility to facility to keep them from their families, to keep them from any legal representation that they may be able to get. They keep them in conditions that are rife with overcrowding, unsanitary and rotten food, and operate under no conditions at all, no standards, no accountability. Meanwhile, DHS has illegally refused to allow members of Congress to do our jobs, to conduct unannounced visits and oversight of these facilities, going as far as to arrest a member of Congress who was carrying out her legitimate oversight responsibilities. The crime of all of this is that the people who are being detained should not be detained at all. They are people with deep roots in our communities and are actively complying with immigration obligations and contributing to their communities. And for the vast majority of people, detention is simply not necessary. There's abundant research and past programs that show that community-based alternatives to detention and case management are the best means to ensure compliance with immigration proceedings at a fraction of the cost of detention. But instead, for-profit detention centers are minting money, and DHS is now handing out no-bid contracts to companies with zero experience and zero accountability, all to pad their profits at taxpayer expense. A shocking and record-breaking 23 people have already died in immigration detention just this year under the Trump administration. Not only is ICE not reporting these deaths as they are legally required to, they also seem to be flat out lying about these cases. Chao Fang Gay died in ICE custody on August 5th. According to ICE, he died by suicide. But according to his attorney, he was found with his hands and feet tied. Both of these things cannot be true. We are here today to say enough. Our Dignity for Detained Immigrants Act has a remarkable, unprecedented 123 original co-sponsors. Before we've even introduced it, 123 co-sponsors, and it overhauls the detention system. It drastically scales back the use of detention. It ensures that every single immigrant who is in detention has their human and civil rights protected. Our bill also phases out the use of private for-profit detention centers. It prohibits the detention of children and families and makes it harder to detain primary caregivers and vulnerable people like pregnant women or seniors or workers who are whistleblowing on unscrupulous employers. It requires DHS to allow members of Congress to do our jobs and conduct those unannounced inspections that hold these facilities accountable. As an immigrant myself, who came to this country by myself when I was 16 years old with nothing in my pockets, now the ranking member of the Immigration Subcommittee in Congress, this bill and this issue is deeply important to me. And I'm going to do everything I can to push it to become law and to ensure that the kind of lawlessness that we are seeing today is never tolerated by the United States government again. Thank you all for being here, and now it is my great honor to introduce my colleague, my sister in the struggle, an incredible champion on immigration issues as well as many others, Representative Delia Ramirez from the great state of Illinois.
It's easier to be an effective champion when we have great leaders like Pramila Jayapal. So thank you. Well, it's really good to be standing here today in solidarity with the Congresswoman and advocates to introduce the Dignity for Detained Immigrants Act. You see, for the last several months, as Chicagoans and our neighbors across the country have been disappeared off the streets and placed in processing centers and detention facilities, more and more Americans have come out to understand just how little dignity our neighbors, our loved ones, are afforded by DHS and their force of terror. Since DHS's inception, immigration detention has been dehumanizing. Detention facilities have been unsafe, inappropriate, inadequate. Too few people receive the necessary medical care that they need. Too many people die in ICE detention. And too much happens in the shadows of very little oversight. As a member of the Committee on Homeland Security, I am clear that the Department of Homeland Security must be held accountable for these gross, unconscionable failures. They have never demonstrated a commitment to our rights, to due process, to the rule of law, or to human dignity. But I'm also very clear that Trump, that Noam, that Bovino, that Homan, and all of the authoritarians and criminals in this administration, they want our lives. They want our labor. They want our freedoms. Why? So that they can extract every bit of profit they can make from us for themselves and their billionaire bosses. That's why. You see, more than 62% of immigrant detention centers are managed by private prison companies. Private prison companies like CoreCivic and GEO Group, who donated millions and millions of dollars to Donald Trump's campaign for president. They knew that mandatory detention paired with Trump's mass deportation campaign would be very good for their business. And it has been. They're richer than ever. And here's the thing. You and I know what is clear. They don't care about our dignity. They care about profit. That's it. They extract profit from our community's pain. Their willingness to inflict pain to extract profit is the same impulse that leads us to the illegal wars in Venezuela and to the many things we're seeing, including the threat to health care in this nation right now. Because as long as they profit, they don't care if we're sick. They don't care if we're starving. They don't care if we're detained. They don't care if we're deported or dead. And that goes for American citizens, my friends. That goes for American citizens too. And that is why this bill is so important. We have to draw a line in the sand. We must meet the moment and reject detention in all its forms. We don't need more mandatory detention, private detention facilities. The family detention that you are seeing, the 9 members of Congress from doing oversight work that we are authorized to do by this very same body. Basta. Enough. We have to reclaim our dignity. We have to restore due process. And we have to end this detention that you and I know is killing our Constitution. It's ending due process. It is putting people at risk every day. It is why I'm standing here today, so proud to co-sponsor, along with, did you say 123 members of Congress, the Dignity for Detained Immigrants Act. The moment to act is now. Our constituents keep asking, how is this possible? Well, we have a solution to it, and we're going to get to 218 members of Congress with your help. With that said, I'd like to now introduce to you a leader in... Am I wrong?
No.
Oh, okay, sorry. Sorry, I got all passionate, and here we are.
There's a mic that's not working.
Got it. Are we set? Let me now introduce to you a leader for freedom of speech, for student rights, for humanity, for peace, Mahmoud Khalil.
Well, thank you so much, Congresswoman.
I tried to keep it.
That's so much pressure. Well, thank you so much, really, Congresswoman, for your leadership and for being the voice of the voiceless, because for so many times we thought that immigrants, no one cares about them. That's what actually those in detention feel, that no one actually is looking at what's happening to them. And when I entered the detention center in Jena, Louisiana, back in March, that moment when I entered that facility, I felt that I don't have any rights, that my dignity left behind. When I entered and saw so many people, men crying at night just because they're being so dehumanized. They couldn't understand why they are here, why they're being called criminals, why they are being tarnished in the media while they didn't do anything. No one should be detained for immigration enforcement. No one. There's no need for detention for immigration enforcement. As Congresswoman Jayapal said, there are so many ways that we can enforce immigration process without detention. There's nothing called civil detention. Detention is detention. That's the point of detention. And detention under this administration has become as a tool for punishment, as a tool for terrorizing communities, to instill fear into U.S. societies, because ICE is acting as Trump militia. They are not a federal agency acting to enforce the law. They are being acting extrajudicially in so many cases. And of course, the for-profit prison system in this country, Geo Group, where I was, that these groups, they would do anything for profit. If that means starving detainees, if that means anything else, they would do it for profit. And I still remember when I was sick for 2 weeks because the detention refused to give me another blanket that would protect me against the cold of the detention. And they wouldn't give me that. And after the Congress delegation visited, that when they brought me another blanket, just because they felt that they are now under oversight, that there might be accountability for that. And I keep thinking of Muhib, a 40-year-old man, of a father of 4 children, and his wife was battling cancer. He was taken out of his court hearing. He did everything right. He did not miss any single court hearing, any single ICE check-in. Yet he was brought into detention, leaving his wife battling cancer alone with 4 young children. That's why supporting this bill, the Dignity for Detained Immigrants bill, is the bare minimum, literally the bare minimum that this Congress can do to bring back some sort of belief in this system, in the rule of law, in due process, because that's all missing. So I hope that this Congress finally wakes up and support this bill, because again, it is the bare minimum. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Mahmoud. It's now, we wanted to root this press conference in stories of real people, and so it's now a great honor to introduce somebody who's worked with us and so many clients who have been detained for a long time, Sarah Owings.
Thank you so much to everyone for coming. Thank you so much, Congresswoman, for putting this together and for your work on this bill. I'm an immigration attorney based in Atlanta, Georgia. I've been practicing there for about 18 years. I'm from the Deep South. I'm actually from Louisiana, not far from Gina. I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. The Trump administration has massively expanded detention to far more people than any previous administration, and has stripped away oversight and accountability mechanisms to prevent these abuses and harm to the people that are detained. This system, as we were saying, it rewards profit and prejudice over justice, safety, and common sense. Moreover, they're blocking access to members of Congress whose job it is to ensure that these facilities follow the rules. Finally, through their labyrinthine process of transferring people, ICE are blocking access to legal counsel and families at detention center and effectively denying people their day in court. I have a lot on my mind right now. I have a lot of worries about a lot of people that I know who are currently in custody. I get a lot of calls from my colleagues who are dealing with the same thing. Just in the last week, I had a colleague in North Carolina call me to tell me about a gentleman who had a heart valve replacement that failed. And he was in custody, and ICE refused to release him. Instead, they transferred him from Georgia to, I believe it was first New Jersey, but they were not able to deport him. That was botched due to his illness. Instead of sending him back to his medical care team to repair the failure, they then sent him to Mississippi. And it was finally only when he nearly perished that he was transferred back to his physicians at Emory for the appropriate repair. My colleague explained to me that ICE is about to kill this man. And he's not the only one. I had another colleague, also in North Carolina, who gave up his Thanksgiving plans to file an emergency habeas motion for a young man who was picked up during ICE's big operation in North Carolina, Charlotte's Web. He had an appointment, one of his 3 weekly appointments at a hemodialysis center. He was picked up on his way there, and he was denied that round of care that he required. He was told by ICE, well, the best way that you can get dialysis, the quickest way you can get that is if you sign this paper to go to Honduras right now. That was without the advice of counsel. That was without any access to information and knowing that the clock was ticking. It was only after my colleague was able to throw very quickly his appearance in at the last minute, pretty much on a holiday, to stop that and make sure that he was not deported without even seeing a judge. That young man had an application for a green card pending. That young man had a single offense for possession, I believe it was 8.3 grams of marijuana. The government would make him out to be some kind of major drug trafficker, but that is just not the case. That young man is now in ICE detention, where he was the first time he became so sick that he needed to go on dialysis. It was medical neglect by ICE that put him in that position. They had all of this information, and yet they still chose to enforce against him. I'm also worried about the family members. I have a woman who is in her 70s. Her husband, who is also in his 70s, takes her to her dialysis appointments. He's a deacon in his church. He has no criminal record. He appeared for a visa interview, and ICE elected to detain him. That woman cannot even walk up the stairs by herself. She is in dire need of him coming home. All of this is happening, but all of this is not really that new, what's going on inside of these detention centers. It's been a problem for a very long time. The difference is that now we have lost oversight. ICE has turned out the lights and locked the door and used the transfer system to make it very difficult for people to locate their counsel, locate their loved ones, and move forward with attempting to see that they have due process. That has to end. ICE will not hold themselves accountable, and so Congress must act to safeguard health, protect the safety, and uphold due process. I urge more people to sign up for this bill, to Call their congresspeople, let them know that they support this, that nothing else will fix it unless Congress acts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. We have another just remarkable and horrific story. I'd like to introduce Dr. Badr Khan Suri, who is a professor and has been doing so much in the academic world and also has his own detention story. Dr. Suri.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, to be here. And I must say that I am really overwhelmed with gratitude that Congresswoman Jayapal, you have introduced such an important bill which we really need, which everyone needs. Thank you for this timely intervention when we need empathy and mature resolution of issues in this crisis. We know that civil detention requires standards in place. There needs to be accountability in the system. Without accountability, no system prevails. We know that these facilities must show some compliance based on these standards. Detention facilities cannot be used for abusing human rights, basic rights. I mean, these for-profit entities should know that they cannot just think of make money and inflict tyranny. They should, and everyone should know that in this country, this institution has given us constitution, due process, and nobody can whittle down that. Institutions cannot let anarchy prevail. Anarchy cannot let due process derail. And we know that Congress is supreme. We know this constitution is supreme, and that will protect us. With this, I must say that when I was abducted and I reached this ICE facilities, first they would disappear you. My family didn't know where I am for 4 or 5 days at least. I was so scared that what would happen to my kids who are also immigrants like me. And once I saw the immigration facility, I was broken by just mere sight of that, by the smell of that. There was no space to put my foot in. And then they just throw me in a storage room where I slept or maybe just lay down that night on that floor. For the first time, I saw that there are cameras over the toilet. For the first time, I realized that people have to sleep on floor where cockroaches are just roaming around. There won't be blankets. Then they just took me from one place to other without never letting me know where I am going, where they are disappearing me. Entirely Kafkaesque story. Then they put me in an aeroplane where I didn't know where it was going, but I saw that there were people like me, chained, ankle, wrist, their body chained, and we were all going somewhere, nobody knows where. Sometimes I thought, because of the turbulence, that maybe they will just crash this plane and get rid of everyone. Then we landed in this Louisiana. My family never know where I am. And they just locked us. I kept on asking, can I make a call? There are phones here. They said, no, just figure out. Later I realized after 6-7 days when they put me in Texas that there need to be a PIN, which they never bothered to give me. When I was in Texas, I said that I have a toothache. There is some infection. They said, no, you need to be here for 6 months to have a dentist visit. So when I came out of this detention, I just lost my tooth. So there was extreme pain in my body. I asked that I need some blood test. They were not ready for it. I said that don't say that administration is not allowing you. In Nuremberg, these arguments were thrown away. There is a day of reckoning. There were good nurses, and finally they allowed blood tests for me. It was very bad. My cholesterol was very high. My vitamin D was very low. So they said that we will give you a medical diet. What was medical diet? Same thing. In place of white bread, they gave me brown bread. I said, what is this? I met grievance officer there. I said, look at the food, what you're just counting calories so that we maintain our weight. There is nothing in this food. My condition is becoming bad. You have old people here, old women who cannot walk. There are men on this wheelchairs who cannot walk, 70 years old, 60 years old, in extremely bad condition. Nobody should be there. It was nothing civil there. It was real Kafkaesque jail dystopian scenario there. They would come with this pepper spray if you demand something and you are gone. If you ask something, you would be put in solitary confinement. There were men who just because of this hardship, receive divorce paper from their wives. And I'm sure there are wives in the other section, in women's section, they must be receiving the same thing. There was single father who left their daughters all alone outside. The story is that there was a father and he has two daughters. One was not even a teenager, maybe in first or second grade, and another was a teenager who just joined a college. But because father was taken away for this traffic light thing, she has to drop her college and take the responsibility of a mother, and they would call that, hey father, a tree fall in our yard, what should we do? And father would say that try hard, take help of neighbor and all these things. Everybody had same stories, and people were, I didn't find, although I was put in a very high security setup, but they were all normal people. I didn't find anything wrong in them. They were just playing their normal games, talking to their family. Every day they would talk to their family. They would make video call. It was such a tough thing that these men were the one who were the breadwinners in the family. And now they are not doing their job. Their families are just asking for money here and there. The food we were getting in this detention center was extremely bad. So everybody was dependent on this because it was a for-profit industry. They were dependent on these commissaries. They have to do their shopping there, and for that they have to request money from their families. It would have been a very hard story for everyone to get that money because it has to be for every week, every day. So things were really, people were breaking down. And these men, when they were outside, they were paying taxes. They were not a burden to a society. There was a man who had, say, X number of kids. It was a big number, that's why I'm saying X. So he would say that, who would give food to my kids now? My wife never worked. I used to keep her as a princess, as a queen. And he used to cry. And there were many others who used to cry, and people were frustrated. They would share stories that, my kids have sent these drawings and paintings to me, but he's not doing well at school. He's getting bad grades because I used to take care of my kid. My wife is now doing job outside. There is no one at home. This man was, say, an immigrant, but his wife was an American citizen. Kids were American citizens. Everybody is suffering now. Those bare minimum is missing. One parent is figuring out to take care of their mortgages, their groceries, and kids are on their own, and they are getting bad grades. Who are these kids? American citizens. So I request, everyone to think that it is not something like we are dealing of aliens who have come from Mars or something. This is about humans. America was built on immigrants. Immigrants built this country. There should be due process. Nobody can reject this. Nobody should dare to think that one can reject it. There is free speech. And we should really think that when we think about these detainees who are just fellow humans, if they are not citizens yet, they are spouses of the citizens. They are parents of citizens. So I'm extremely, to cut it short, extremely thankful to Congresswoman to do this remarkable job. And we are extremely proud of this. And we know that this institution will always make justice for everything. Thank you very much.
So powerful. Thank you so much, Dr. Suri, and thank you for sharing the universal lack of humanity that is present in these detention centers. Our final, but certainly not least speaker, has been working on this issue in every capacity for many, many years. We are so grateful to you, Heidi Altman, from the National Immigrant Justice Center.
Thank you, Congresswoman. What a privilege to be here today to celebrate the reintroduction of this bill. And I would also like us together to reaffirm that one day it will become law. Yes. And we will be here, yes, and we will celebrate that day, and we will be fighting together until it happens. I'm the Vice President of Policy at the National Immigration Law Center, where we advocate for justice for low-income immigrants. And for about 20 years, like Sarah, I have represented and advocated for and alongside people who have survived or are surviving the United States immigration detention system. One thing I know for sure, immigration detention is designed to break the spirit of the people inside its walls. And you heard that firsthand today. Every person inside an ICE jail or prison is separated from their families. This is an intentional form of family separation. The vast majority of them are unable to find a lawyer, and despair often forces them to give up their rights and accept deportation. Make no mistake, this is not a byproduct of the system. It is the intended consequence. This is the case today, and it was the case back in the 1980s when the immigration detention system as we know it today first began to grow, fueled then and now by the greed of private prison executives and by fear of people who our government tells us are the other, but are not. So who are the tens of thousands of people stuck in ICE prisons and jails as we stand here today? Our neighbors, our friends, our colleagues, our children's teachers. Because of their place of birth, they are enduring so many horrors, and you have heard some of them today firsthand. They are enduring medical neglect. They cannot get treatment for the cancer they were diagnosed with before they were detained. They are thrown in solitary confinement when they dare to complain about the horrible treatment they are enduring. They are fed food with worms, torn from their children and their livelihoods. They are called names and racist slurs by the officers, and if they happen to be a member of the LGBT community, they will almost certainly face harassment, assault, or worse. But we're here today because we know it can be different. We know study after study, as you've heard, shows that immigrants voluntarily appear for their immigration court cases. We can imagine a different approach, one where we support and welcome our neighbors as they navigate the U.S. immigration system, where we greet people seeking asylum with community support and nourishment instead of handcuffs. And we are so lucky that Congresswoman Jayapal has this vision, and that she and Congressman Smith have been championing this vision for years with this critical bill, and we are beyond grateful for your leadership and your perseverance. At the National Immigration Law Center, we're so proud to endorse the Dignity for Detained Immigrants Act and proud to call very loudly today on every member of Congress to sign on today. Thank you to the members who are here today, to my fellow speakers who are here fighting for dignity. We know you won't give up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Heidi. Tomorrow we'll have our fifth shadow hearing that I lead as ranking member of the Immigration Subcommittee, and it's specifically on detention. I hope you all will cover that as well. Happy to open it up for questions if anyone has them. I do. The question was, do we see opportunity to advance legislation? I do, because I actually think the American people across ideology, across political party, are looking at what's happening and saying, this is not who we are, this is not what I want. I think there were many people who were taken by the misinformation and disinformation that was being spread about criminals in our communities and all of that. But they see that that's not what's happening. And so there is a renewed interest in understanding how this could possibly be happening in our streets, at our schools, at our community centers, and seeing people like those that you heard about today, heard from and heard about today, who have done absolutely nothing wrong and defy all of the stereotypes and misinformation that are being put out there. So I think that the American people don't like this, don't want this. And my hope is that we will get some courageous Republicans on the other side to say this is not how we should do this. But in the meantime, look, we're going to push forward because Congress is often behind the American people, but we need to continue the momentum. And this is quite I know for you all cover Congress, you know that getting a bill on immigration with 123 co-sponsors from the get-go on reforming the detention system is not an easy thing, but I think a lot of people are horrified by what they've been seeing.
This is a reintroduction of legislation from 2023. What has changed, if anything, in it, and do you have it?
We've added some provisions to respond to the things that we're seeing, because obviously it's the massive increase in using mandatory detention. So the repeal of mandatory detention, the provision, which really shouldn't be necessary, but we put it in anyway, around oversight, has been very important. The categories of expanded vulnerable populations, because we're seeing people being picked up who are sole caregivers, a number of those things we've strengthened because we're seeing the abuses by this administration. And I think that, the phase out of private for-profit detention centers, that has always been a part of this, just as we phased out of the criminal justice system, if you remember, with bipartisan support, because it's actually more expensive for taxpayers to do this than to do the kinds of alternatives that we are proposing.
So this was an issue you saw during the last administration as well when it came to...
We've seen a continuation of expansion, as Heidi said, of the for-profit detention center, but it has never been at the level that it is today with the resources and the lack of accountability of today. It is quite significantly different, but it is built on a system that has been in place and unfortunately now given enormous resources and rhetoric to expand. One more if we have it. Yes.
On the provisions, it sounds like a number of them are sort of a departure from the effective enforcement of U.S. immigration law. Wouldn't it ultimately codify Biden's catch and release policy?
The detention system has nothing to do with catch and release. It has to do with due process under the law and the ability that people have to actually go through court cases in order to... The immigration system is a civil, legal immigration system. I would just say that the people that are being picked up right now by this administration, some are U.S. citizens, as was mentioned. Some have been green card holders for a long time. The rationale for going out and kidnapping and disappearing, abducting, I think was the word that Dr. Suri used, and that's right. People are being abducted in the street with no attention given whatsoever to the Constitution and to due process. As I mentioned, 220 judges across the country, including 23 appointed by Donald Trump, have said that this mass detention policy is absolutely against the rule of law. Okay, thanks everybody. Appreciate you. Thanks for being here. Thanks to our speakers. Thank you. Thank you. That was wonderful. Thank you so much. Yeah, okay, sounds good.
Thank you, likewise.
Again, I'm so sorry. I know people not far
Really, thanks a lot.
I'm so happy to meet you. I sort of feel like I'm meeting a movie star.
No.
I'm Heidi. No, yeah.
Stuff.
Sure. We work regularly with Moran and the NYIC, and so we were hearing all the updates from him and
Still along the
but he's starting his journey again. I'm sure you're still recovering.
we don't have like